So if you're a beginner and you're brand new to photography or videography and you're just getting started and you're trying to figure out what type of stuff you need to get, hopefully this video will be helpful to you, because a lot of the stuff that us as YouTubers recommend you don't need as a beginner. Now, most of the things that I'm listing in this video are not bad products, right? They're actually really good things, but they're things that you don't actually need as a beginner photographer or videographer, and you'd be better putting your money elsewhere. So again, this video is very much aimed to beginners. So if you're not a beginner, if you're a seasoned photographer, videographer, you're a professional, please give this a watch, and then in the comments, drop down maybe a couple other areas that you could help beginners save some money and where they might be better reinvesting that money to help them as they begin to start. Now, the first thing in this list are camera bundles. Okay, so on Amazon, whenever you're looking at purchasing a new camera, anytime you get a new camera, they often offer these like bundles of stuff, right? It's maybe $50 extra, right? It doesn't seem like a whole lot more. It's maybe $20 to $50 on top of the regular price, and you get a whole bunch of accessories. The problem is these accessories are useless, in my opinion. I think 99% of the time, almost all the bundles that I've seen come with a bunch of accessories that most people will never ever use. That includes things like UV filters, which are useless, right? Don't use UV filters anymore. You don't have to. The only thing that they do is maybe protect the lens of your glass, but even then you don't really need them if you're careful with your equipment. And actually it can degrade the quality of your lens because you're putting really cheap glass on front of some more expensive glass. Just don't worry about those. They come with like a camera bag that feels like it's made out of paper, and then maybe like an SD card that is like $5 worth, and it's likely to fail. It's better to invest in much better SD cards. So save yourself the $20 to $50 of that bundle, because you're going to throw most of that stuff out anyway, and maybe use that $50 to go into a decent SD card. Now, another thing that often comes in those kits that I would highly recommend that you avoid is a kit lens. I would highly recommend any beginner photographer or videographer, don't buy a kit lens. Take that money and reinvest it into much better glass. Kit lenses are fine, right? They're fine. They're not terrible. They're fine. But you can get some fantastic lenses for $200 that is going to way outperform a kit lens. For me personally, especially for beginners, I think it's a really good place to start is to go with some prime lenses. The Sigma Contemporary series, right? They're 16, they're 30, and they're 56. I actually don't have the 30, the 56, but I've got these two for under $200 each. Well, the 16mm I got for $200, and the 30mm I got for $180. These are incredible lenses, absolutely fantastic. But beyond that, you can get a lot of little like manual lenses, right? So just manual photography lenses that you can get really high quality glass and really high quality images for a lot less money, because they're saving the money on, you know, not having to put in all the electronics. And it's actually better for you as a beginner is to learn some manual focus. I've got a whole video on that coming out here soon, so subscribe if you want to see that. But you can get some incredible footage with really cheap lenses that cost a whole lot less than just your kit lens. Take these clips, for example. I made a whole video about this, but this was a lens that I got for just $25 on Amazon. And it's a little manual 35mm f1.7. It's got its quirks, but it's really cool. I love the image that comes out of it, and I'd like it, you know? And for $25, I would highly recommend that over a kit lens. They typically aren't sharp. They don't have much character to them. They're a little bit boring. They have variable apertures. I just don't think that they're worth your money. I think it's far better to save that money and reinvest it into better lenses. Now, you might be saying, well, I don't have any extra money to spend on my lenses because the camera that I'm getting is so expensive. That actually comes to my next point, which is don't buy expensive cameras, right? If you're a beginner, you're brand new, and you're just getting started, don't buy an expensive camera. Let's say you have $1,500 set aside to buy your first camera. That's a lot of money, by the way. That's a pretty substantial amount of money, $1,500. But in the world of cameras, it's actually not that much, right? And you might think, well, I could put $1,500 into getting an A6700 with a kit lens. And that's all that you can get. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would highly recommend, you know, chop $500 off of that and get yourself a camera for around $1,000. Look on the used market and look elsewhere or into different cameras, because you don't want to be spending the entire budget that you have on just the camera body. Because honestly, the camera body is one of the least important parts of everything that you need to capture a good image or good video. So again, it is much better to save some of that money and put it into higher end lenses or into things like audio or lighting, which will make a massive difference in the quality of the content that you're able to get. And again, this is not to say that expensive cameras are bad. Expensive cameras are great. You're watching this on a $2,000 camera, right? Which is quite a lot of money. I've got a $4,000 to $5,000 cinema camera sitting over here, right? There's a time and a place to spend a lot of money on cameras, specifically once you're a bit more seasoned and you're confident and you're learning and you're doing well. But as a beginner, there is actually a decent chance that you're going to spend $1,000 on a camera, and 6 months later you're going to find out maybe this wasn't the hobby for me. At that point, you were far better off spending $800 on a camera rather than $2,000 on a camera, because it's gonna sit on a shelf, maybe. But on the flip side of that, maybe you end up becoming a professional and you build up your portfolio and you make loads of money with your camera, in which case you've built the funds and you've got the money to go and spend on an expensive camera. I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to say that expensive cameras aren't worth it. Of course they are, but beginners, just get started with a cheap camera, because as I've said so many times in my videos, if you can't get a good image out of a cheap camera, you're not going to be able to get a great image out of a really expensive camera. Now, the fourth thing is something that I see beginners buying all the time, and they just don't need them because they never use them, and that's actually gimbals. Again, gimbals are great, really great products, and there's some really affordable beginner gimbals that you can get. Gimbals are a fantastic product, but as you can possibly even see on this one, they sit on the shelf 99% of the time, because gimbals are really good when you need them, but especially as a beginner, the amount of times that you need them is pretty small, right? You're going to use it like every day for the first week, and then you're going to realize that setting it up is a bit of a faff, and working with it, getting it balanced is a bit tedious, and it gets to the point where you just set it on the shelf, especially if you're not doing client work that requires gimbals. It starts out as a novelty and it's cool, and then you set it on the shelf and you're just kind of happy enough walking around with the camera, because these are big, bulky, take some time to get set up, and they're a little bit finicky to use, and there's a learning curve to develop a skill on how to use the gimbal properly. So again, if you're just getting started, I wouldn't recommend getting a gimbal. I would invest that money in something like a cheap tripod or something instead that'll do you a whole lot better, because again, not because gimbals are bad, they are great, and there are times where they are like a necessity, right? Depending on what it is that you're filming, gimbals are sometimes vital to what you're trying to film, but as a beginner, most of the time that's not the case. I'd save the money and wait and build up your portfolio, and when you can afford to, go ahead and invest in a gimbal some point down the line. And this last one really kind of pains me to say this, but V-mount batteries, right? V-mount batteries are really cool. I love a good V-mount battery. I've talked so much about V-mount batteries on this channel because they're really, really handy. They're basically camera-focused power banks that you can also use for things like laptops and all that kind of stuff. They're great, right? And YouTubers love talking about V-mount batteries. They're so helpful and so handy. But as a beginner, $200 for a V-mount battery is pretty steep, right? If you're brand new to this stuff and you're just getting started, things like V-mount batteries or rigging out your camera into a big rig, I don't think you need to do that just yet, right? Save your money, because all of these little accessories can really, really add up, and I don't think that you need them right away. Again, I absolutely love V-mount batteries and I love building cinema rigs, but there's a time and a place. And I think once you've built up your portfolio, once you know that photography is actually something that you want to invest in properly, right? Not just like, I think I'm going to give this a go, I'm going to go buy my first camera. Once you're like, okay, I'm all in, I'm ready to dive in, I'm ready to throw money at this because that is what it takes. Then at that point, you might be fine to go ahead and get things like V-mount batteries, gimbals, all of these other accessories. But here's the whole point. If you're a beginner, if you're a photographer, or you're just buying your first camera, the main thing you need to look at getting is a camera. Not too expensive, not too cheap. More importantly than your camera body are decent lenses, right? Get some good lenses. Don't just cheap out and get a kit lens, because your camera is only as good as the glass that you put in front of it. So make sure that you invest properly into your lenses, and just try to avoid a bunch of the random little knickknacks that you think that you might need that you probably just don't. So anyway, that's my list. Drop your list in the comments below if you're a seasoned photographer, videographer, you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about. What are some of the things that us as YouTubers recommend that you think the beginners don't need to worry about? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, drop a comment down below, or maybe even subscribe as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.